4020.
Ray French. Tell us about Ray. You've got his book. I've got one of his books here. 100 Great Rugby League Players, and you've got a book published by Scratching Said Publishing.
Yeah, I mean this is hard because he was such a lovely man. I mean, forget about whether he was a good commentator. Forget about Voice of Rugby League. You will not meet many nicer people in sport and in the press boxes of sport. And the one thing that hasn't been made enough of, I don't think. Well, two things. I mean, clearly, he was a great player in his era. I don't remember seeing him play. I may have done. And a great broadcaster, took on the mantle of Eddie Waring, and that's a thankless task in itself, but was always almost self-deprecating about what he was doing. But the two things that struck me was, one, he was a bloody good journalist, which not enough people say. He had a column in the Rugby League, and it was brilliant. And when I used to be the media manager of the Rugby League conference, which was trying to spread the game in development areas, he used to ring me every week and say, "Tell me which game I should go to." I'd go, "Oh, go to South Norfolk against Ipswich, it'll be a great local derby." And he'd go, and he'd report it, and he was passionate about spreading the game. And you know, from having been at the Edge at Leeds University, where the Leeds wheelchair play, that he was absolutely germane in the foundation and formation of student rugby league. And at the Edge there is a plaque that commemorates that, and it's a strange story in itself, because he should have gone to Loughborough University to study sports science, but he signed for St Helens, and Loughborough wouldn't have him, because it was in those days of like, well, we're part of the establishment, and if you've gone and professionalised yourself, we don't want you. So he went to Leeds University and studied English literature, which again, why he was such a damn good journalist, because his vocab was really brilliant and his references were fantastic. But at Leeds University, he started, along with a couple of other people, University Rugby League. So his passion for the sport and expanding the sport and giving everybody a voice in the sport was legendary. But what I really liked about him was his humour, because he didn't take himself so seriously. So I have a very small passage from the book that we did publish, which I'm not here to promote our books.
However,
it is still available.
Round hay.
One thing that he always said was that when he took over from the BBC, he knew how thankless a job it would be. And the producers at the BBC at the time said to him, if 50% of the people like what you do and 50% of the people don't like what you do, you're doing a brilliant job. And he always bore that in mind. He tried never to be too much one way to appease people and too much the other to try and get back the ones that were never going to like him. So in this book, he receives a letter from an irate Bradford fan. So it says, "Dear Sir, unfortunately I was unable to attend the clash between the Bradford Bulls and St Helens, but was delighted to be able to purchase a video of the match which highlighted a tremendous win by the Bulls over the cup winners St Helens. You'd expect some supportive comment from ex-Saints forward Ray French, but I'm afraid that my video has been ruined by his disgraceful, pathetic, paltry and at times laughable commentary. Some of his comments bordered on the childish, like a schoolboy who had his lollipop stolen in the playground, and only in the last 5 minutes, as if to make amends for his ridiculous comments, did he even refer to what was a terrific performance by the Bulls. His biased and lamentable commentary is certainly not called for, and if commentators could be called up before Rugby League's disciplinary council for bringing the game into disrepute, then Ray French would be a prime candidate."
So that's when we talk about the past.
To which he said,
even trolls were better back in the day.
To which he said, "I wasn't even at the match, as I was commentating for BBC Radio Merseyside on Warrington versus Castleford the same day."
Still his fault, though.
Never took himself too seriously.
No, that's
just
gold.
a lovely
That's
man.
gold.
Lovely man.
the dog on the pitch. That's our permanent tribute to Ray French. He said, "Why do they always bring dogs?" And all those other phrases.
The other thing was, anybody in a press box that he ever encountered, he could not have been more supportive and encouraging. So
It's always
yes.
a mark of someone who's very good at their job and they're very secure in their job and knows what they're doing.
Well, even the story he tells in the book about being rung by the BBC to get the job, because he applied for the job, but he never thought he would get it. And he went on a school rugby tour with Cowley School, where he was a brilliant English teacher, never mind looked after loads of rugby teams. And they were in a Chinese restaurant at midnight in Melbourne because they'd played in that afternoon. They had a big win and they were out celebrating. And the phone rings in the restaurant, which, like, when does that happen at midnight? We're not talking about mobiles. And the owner of the restaurant says, "Is there Mr. Ray French in the room?" Ray French, there's a telephone call for Ray French. And Ray thinks, well, who at midnight could be trying to get hold of me? And what could it possibly be about? So he's a bit sceptical when he picks up the phone. And the guy on the other end is the head of the BBC who's offering him the job. And he said, "Mr. French, yes, I've been trying to track you down. We'd like to take you up and offer you the job as the lead commentator on the BBC television. I just wanted to tell you and congratulations." And Ray was absolutely convinced that all the people he'd gone on tour with were jokers. And it was one of those that was impersonating the and Ray's reaction was, "Oh, piss off," and put the phone down. I'd have to ring him back.
Well, I didn't know Ray, but I found it. All the best lines are stolen. And Ross Heppenstall was telling me a story that Martin Afire told him that it was apparently Ray French who told Dougie Lawton to sign him because St Helens had looked at Martin playing rugby union. Like, no, he's not good enough. And he rang his friend Dougie Lawton and said, "Go and sign him and look at the career that Martin had." So he had an eye for talent, didn't he?
Oh, and he was, but that's why he used to go to all of the games. I mean, he was at every Rugby League conference final. He would go anywhere to just report in his column about these people are playing Rugby League and I want to give them my support. And he was brilliant.
I was thinking about this because you think of commentators in terms of their legendary lines or sayings or whatever, and there isn't a moment I can think of where Ray French says something prophetic or whatever, because that's not what he was doing. He wasn't there to come up with a pre-prepared line that he'd thought of weeks and weeks in advance, just in case something happened. He was just telling you what was going on.
It was never about him. And he was, some of the summarisers he worked with were close. So like when he worked with Alex Murphy, they'd been teammates, so they had a natural rapport. Jonathan Davis, in the early part of Jonathan's broadcasting, you could tell that Jonathan was a little bit in awe of Ray because Ray had commentated on all his great moments, and it sort of worked because Ray wasn't trying to be Mr. Personality. It was like, I'm in the presence of somebody you know. It's no coincidence that we still talk about the likes of Ellery Hanley and Gary Schofield and Sean Edwards being people who were recognised. Ray went out of his way to make sure we knew who those people were. That their talent would have got them that anyway, but Ray was always saying, the commentaries that people put on social media about tries that Ellery Hanley have scored. You would go away from watching that, even if you didn't know Rugby League. The one thing you'd remember is the commentator was telling me this Ellery Hanley's good. And again, it's a different world now, I understand all that, but he was vitally important in creating personalities because he never really wanted it to be about him. Did you comment on any of your performances?
I don't know, actually. When did he? It was
He must have
2008, was it?
But he was on Radio Merseyside up until
So
2019.
I touched us the Challenge Cup final in 2006, 7 and 8, so probably he would have commentated.
And I think
on
he did some work in the World Cup, didn't he? In 2013, he was commentating on games in that, so that you might have been.
I mean, I didn't have an awful lot to do with him, but whenever I did, he was just as you say, just a really down to earth chap, very easy to talk to, really.
And he wanted to talk to you.
Yeah, and as a young boy growing up watching the Challenge Cup as you did on the BBC, because that's all there was. He was, certainly for my generation anyway, the voice of Rugby League. I don't remember Eddie Waring.
Well, you wouldn't,
right.
But he was from your neck of the woods.
He was.
The other thing that I can remember, and we could spend fulsome time with tributes. I think people are getting the ideas. Talking of the World Cup in 2013, we did a series of road shows, which I know we've done in previous World Cup. So we did one at the Ilkley Literature Festival, where we took the World Cup, and there was a panel of I think 4 or 5 people, and we did it at the Craiglands Hotel, where the Australians used to stay when they came over to tour. And most of the people that go to a literature festival will sign up for events rather than, am I going to be interested in this event? So we were a bit worried about how to pitch it, and Ray was on the panel, and they made us feel very welcome. JJB was on, and I think it was his first, because he was still playing then, and I think that was the first time he'd sort of spoken in front of an audience. And I remember Ray saying, somebody asked the question, what's the main difference between when you played and now? And Ray thought for a minute, and he said, we didn't have hamstrings in my day. And that was him.
Also, didn't have turkey hair replacements. They did that surgery.
Well, this is the thing. Ray French always looked about 70 years old, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Even when he was those pictures of him playing for St Helens in the 60s.
It's a Bobby Charlton look. Yeah.
Always. But a magnificent voice. Can we do another roadshow soon, says Abigail. If someone wants us to go out there and talk to people, we'll talk to people. Ian says, having been taught by Ray at Cowley High School, I can confirm his vocabulary was as baffling to an 11-year-old at the time. Robert says, lovely tribute. Yes, great English teacher and coach of the all-conquering Cowley School rugby union team in the late 60s and early 70s. He lived and loved the game. How was he allowed to coach a rugby union team? Because he professionalised himself.
He was, I think, president of Liverpool St Helens, and again, one of those people that on a match day did everything. So, he wasn't just a nominal president. He would be at the club at 11 o'clock, filling the bath for the players, making sure the beer was behind the bar, right sort of welcome when the opposition came. It didn't matter. He loved sport. He loved talking about sport. He told great tales about sport, so people wanted to be in his company. A little bit, but different to Dave Hadfield in many ways. It's that sort of generation of writers and broadcasters that we don't have anymore, and that's no detriment on anybody who's doing it. The world was different, and these names will stand out.
Dual Code International in a day when that was something meaningful.
Yeah. Played in a Rugby League World Cup in 1968 in Australia.
Go watch the video on the BBC website Dave Woods did, because it's really good, and just all those, the soundtrack of all those moments from 82 to 2008 or whatever. Every great moment that was in the Challenge Cup or a Ashes series or a game against New Zealand or whatever, likely, because it was on the BBC, voice of Ray French. And now there's so many games on, you don't have that same thing in any sport because there's so many commentators doing all these things. So, a different era, as you say.
Wonderful man.
Which is the most important thing.
Yes, and that's what we'll be remembered for.
How many books did he do? I mean, there's 2 on the table.
Oh, he's done a few. He did a few, but then
more rugby, further rugby.
It fits in because again, My Kind of Rugby when that came out was launched because he went to Leeds University down at the mansion near Roundy Park, just down here, and some of the players he used to play with all came and supported it. It was just a wonderful evening where he told tales about his life in rugby, and I'm not sure that's still available, but anything he wrote, if you can get hold of it, it's worth reading.
I know our former colleague Paul Bennett was fulsome in his trips because he used to write a column in after the league, the Rugby League went.
Yeah,
well, it's merge
went
onto
to
League
League Weekly. Yeah.
Obviously, sadly, no longer with us either.